Hello, my name is Máiríde Woods and I'm delighted to be here today talking to you, even though it's not the usual festival setup and I can't see any faces in front of me, but nevertheless we're going ahead, which is the main thing. I've been a poet for many, many years, more than I would like to kind of count here, and I have been writing and have had 3 collections published, which is great, but writing is probably a sort of a passion and something that you would do whether you were published or not, as everybody probably knows. I was brought up in the north of Ireland in Cushendall, and I lived in Coleraine as a boarder. In fact, all this lockdown has brought back my paranoia about being a boarder and being confined. So it's good that we're coming out of it at this stage. The first poem I'm going to read you is from that period of life. It's Portia at Coleraine. I didn't much like being a boarder, but I was at a good school and we met Shakespeare at school. And this is about the Coleraine Festival, which in the days long ago when people didn't have TVs and mobile phones, etc., we had Shakespearean festivals, which probably sounds very twee. Anyway, there was a festival, and I was particularly taken with the words of Portia from The Merchant of Venice, of course. This is Portia at Coleraine. It's the Shakespearean festival. Coleraine in '61, pre-civil rights, pre-Beatles, the age of innocence. This tall and spiky 5th year my best friend has a crush on is playing Portia in The Merchant. I'm young and gauche and still festooned with sheet and bath towel from my role as loitering friend and countryman in Julius Caesar. I hankered after noble Anthony's part, but we can't all be stars, so sister said. Leaning against the wall bars, I see Portia swirl on, wearing Miss Diamond's gown. She's stronger on the quality of justice than of mercy, says my friend, seeing she comes from Derry. Almost gerrymandered city, oh excellent young man. And for a moment in that draughty hall, I glimpsed the power and steel of intellect. But what's this silly rigmarole of rings and promises, kept and unkept? That's love, my friend explains. She dyes her hair. You have to keep guys guessing. In the applause, she swoops on stage and plants a kiss on Portia's noble brow. How many things by seasoned are. Justice and adolescence, fired with Shakespeare. So in that collection, I suppose one of the other things that I wrote about was writing, and I suppose a lot of writers think a lot about words and where to put words and which words to use. And one of the poems that I wrote about this was called A Place for Bangor Bawn. I was looking for an empty space to plant a common or garden poem. No orchid, no special requirements of sun or shade. Any word-free ledge would suffice. There is the back of the painting, the artist's dreams undusted, the margin beside the crossword, the circle behind the guitar strings, awash with hidden music. A slim and flexible verse could bed down in any corner to wait on quickening. Who knows, the spirit might descend, even on a pay-and-display ticket. Words blur, get orphaned of meaning, like paper boats. Their chances of survival no wider than the vellum margin where a monk wrote of his little white 12th century cat. And I suppose a lot of poems, come out of loss. And I suppose at this stage of my life, I've lost a lot of people. And one of the people that I've written quite a few poems about is my daughter, who died in 2001. And the next poem I'm going to read is also from The Lost Roundness of the World. And it's called Soul Journeys. I saw your white bus this morning sailing down our street, calling for all your old companions. I wondered if souls like yours have wheels, if you now skate swiftly through that other world where I can't catch your sounds. You have gone before me. I'm stuck here waiting for some ghost bus, no longer on anyone's list, neither winter nor summer. Clouds catch the meagre sun, and a girl in a wheelchair not quite the same as yours laughs at our dog. Moments link each other like giddy schoolgirls, and I try tracing the paths we surely took, the sunny clearings, where I must have missed something, where perhaps you smiled while I was looking down into my bag of worries. And I suppose, as well as loss, there's always hope. And the next poem I'm going to read is called Fishing for Hope. And I suppose I grew up by the seaside, and when I was a child, I fished for things in the pools around us. And this one is called Fishing for Hope, and it's about going out and seeing what you're going to find. These things that you find don't always go according to plan. I throw my line out into an empty ocean, not dressed for fishing, knowing nothing about waders, oilskins, or moving shoals. What might I have caught had the ocean not been barren of lovers, questions, or other live bait? I sit by the arch of the bridge, watching the vacant strand stripped of its sandcastles, the squiggly waves, innocent of any sails. No starfish point to answers as I wait for that ghost moon to glimmer on the waters, wait for the souls of vanished selkies. And that poem came from a collection called Unobserved Moments of Change. And I suppose change comes upon you sometimes. Nowadays they always tell you that you organise change, but in my experience this is not what happens. You find out about it afterwards, and you wonder why you didn't notice at the time. And this poem is about that, and the image that sort of brings that together is of the round trees, which this time of the year suddenly appear with berries, not apparently having had flowers or anything previously. And that's sort of what I use for the idea that you miss things. Suddenly, overnight it seems, the berries are out on the round trees in clusters of orange, telling me that summer is half over and all those flighty hopes of spring have vanished like ghost riders who switch overnight from future to past. And I wonder if I had sat up all those July dawns watching the rowan branches, could I have witnessed the turning moment when the callow blossoms fell apart and the berries poked their flaming pixie heads through the cross-patterned leaves? I'm a late bird, fated to miss my liminal moment, distracted by the quotidian as winter becomes spring, swanliness seizes the signet, tiny wrinkles creep along the neck, the tide pulls back to the shore. It was a passing sparrow distracted me the day I found Eurydice crumpling into dead leaves. And I suppose, I'm writing as a woman, and most of my poems are about women. And I've written several poems that are about, the changes that have occurred in women's life over my lifetime. And as a young girl, I was very insistent that I wasn't going to live the sort of life I saw lived in small villages and towns around me in rural County Antrim. And as you get older, you see that perhaps there was a value in those lives that you wouldn't maybe have seen as a young person. And this one is called Woman on a Bike. That bent woman passes me, pedalling her ancient bike up Barrack Bray. Headscarf and coat flap in the unforgiving wind. Messages and promises have worn down spine and fourth finger as she pushes home from Mass. Once I struggled up that unkempt hill, scarred my shins on rusty mudguards, pitted myself against gales, before shrugging off the knot of scarf, the inching progress, the tedious necessary cunning with egg money for a dream of elsewhere. Back in the lapsed world of triangular headscarves and string bags tugging at handlebars, a jagged sunlight mottles the puddles of past and future. I find myself saluting endurance among the henhouses and that old faithfulness tied to the rattling carrier. Next poem and the following and the last one are going to be from my book, A Constant Elsewhere of the Mind. And this one is called Swan Thoughts. And I think there was a swan in the last poem, but this, or the one before. And this one draws on the experience of having lived in two places and being quite attached to two places. North Dublin, where I live now, and County Antrim, a very beautiful place, which, filled my mind for many, many years. And it also draws on the legend of the children of Lir, the wicked stepmother turning the three brothers and Fionnuala into swans and exiling them for 900 years. And one of the places they were exiled to was the Sea of Moyle, which is close to County Antrim. 4 swans crossed the Kilbarrack Road on a flat February day, no promise of spring. Fionnuala and her brothers, perhaps, exchanging one watery exile for another. How much would they remember after 300 years? A father's weakness, a stepmother's paranoia, loss and fear? Does the line between home and exile blur, making the foreign the familiar? Like the red brick bungalow by Dublin Bay, where I've spent most of my life, as much a part of me now as Antrim ever was. Did Fionnuala come to love my Sea of Moyle, her last exile, as painful as the first? Perhaps all that remains is a constant elsewhere of the mind, bags packed for departure, through the building of nests, the rearing of young, the wing beat of injustice recurs. I see a bowed old man feeding swans at Broadmeadow, remembering princely forms. Pictures of stretched wings and necks tell their story to the crooked heart. The lost names echo: Garan, Lurgaden, Dalriada, Kintyre. The exile's inner ear resounds to an unrequited place around a new band. My swans head up for Bina, across Baldoyle Industrial Estate, making for the estuary. And I'm going to read you next one of the poems I wrote in lockdown. It's called Words in Lockdown. And it's, I suppose, about the ideas that come to you as you sit waiting to be released. On the trampoline of losses, words start their workout, moving to the climbing frame in an exotic virus dance, metaphor shoving simile and rhyme into second place. On the slide, regulations skitter down, followed by loneliness. My solitaire heart pings at the chirp of a WhatsApp perching on my phone. In the marshmallow sky, the sun stays positive, but the silence is like the ogre's snarl, blocking contact. Within my travel radius, the past retreats to the unfinished rockery, while the future takes its exercise by the Donamead roundabout. Another poem from lockdown is called The Tigers Have Come Down. The tigers have crept down from their shrouded mountains, places we once planned to visit as safari tourists, decrying the loss of wilderness, field glasses ready to track exotic creatures. This spring, they appeared uninvited outside our city. No one knows how they fetched up here, but our conversations grow tiger-shaped, even with few sightings. Their scent hangs acrid and threatening on our ambiguous air. Home is best, our governors say. Follow the rules, and everything will be all right. We stay put, brooding on boundaries and weaknesses. Which neighbour might harbour tiger cubs, the face of innocence lulling us. In the third turgid month confined, sleep deserts us. The quiet grows eerie, growls and snuffles deafen. Unmasked stars light up ruffled stripes. Prowlers have pounced on our playground world. And I'm going to finish with a poem from Constant Elsewhere of the Mind. It's a poem about one of my rather overgrown plants in my garden. And it's a poem about getting to be old. It's called Age Does Not Wither Her, which is, of course, from Anthony and Cleopatra. It's my old friend, the flowering currant, like some overblown shawlie coming into her own this April, despite all the talk about diets and cutting back. Frost and storm have not withered her. She waves her pink tassels with her scent of the dance hall. How tenacious. 30 years doing the steps outside my window. Her limbs die away or grow at angles from her dark skeleton, but you'd never guess the knotted bones beneath the party dress she's donned for Easter. I'm learning how to be old at her gnarled feet. Wisdom, as slow as a watched-for visitor, easing its way from the life source through the habit of spring. Well, thank you very much. It's been very nice talking to you here from this room. And I have to try and imagine an audience in front of me. And thanks to Enda and all the organisers of this Skerries Festival.